Now, once installed, you've got to make sure it's tested correctly. Part of the process is the testing. Now, if the situation arises when the enforcer is not confident that the design will work, they may request to do a full in-situ commissioning fire test. And this is going to give confidence to all parties. And it may also identify other problems that may not be obvious, such as your smoke curtains not reaching the floor, which I discussed earlier. Now, acceptance tests of smoke management systems in covered malls and atria are conducted using a variety of techniques, ranging from rational approaches to those which are a bit more arbitrary. The priority is that the acceptance test should seek to confirm that the performance parameters of the system have been achieved. So what are your design criteria? Are you satisfying that? It's not just, will smoke come out? It's not about that. It's, will it meet the design criteria? If it's been designed to maintain a smoke layer that high, will it do that? If it's designed that smoke will travel a certain way, will it do that? Now, one of the most significant flaws with the performance of these acceptance tests is to specify what they're looking to determine. Sometimes they just think, let's just do a smoke test in here, but they're not actually specifying what they're trying to achieve. In other words, what will be deemed as a pass and what will be deemed as a fail. They're not actually saying that, they're just saying it hasn't done bad, has it? It's got most of it out. That's not an acceptance test. You've got to specify what is a pass and what is a fail. Now, when you're determining your acceptance criteria, ensure it relates to the design basis of the system. For example, makeup air, you've got your supply rates and your exhaust rates. So you're trying to make sure that the actual rates, the makeup rates, the exhaust and inlet air rates are being achieved. For example, one might be to make sure that the velocity of the gases, the velocity of the air inlets does not exceed 7 metres a second. Well, that's what you should be trying to achieve. So the next thing you need to decide is how you're going to carry out the test. One option is a visible test. However, some people feel that this is an automatic requirement. Every time you've got to do a visible test. I want to see some smoke being extracted. Now, while the use of visible smoke can be valuable in some applications, in others it can be used for the wrong reasons. It can give you a false sense of security on an inappropriate view of its performance. In other words, it looks like, oh yes, it's sucking it out, that's a pass. Well, not necessarily. Therefore, you have to identify the purpose of carrying out a visible test. If this is the way you're going to go, then you've obviously got to identify what we're trying to achieve by this. People try and justify the need for a visible test because they feel the need to simulate the conditions during a fire. Well, you don't do that for other installations, do you? You don't put the sprinklers in and say, I want to see them put out fires to make sure they work. So why do you have to do it for the smoke control system? Well, the answer is really you don't. Now, some tests are carried out by filling the space with smoke bombs and then seeing how long it takes to clear the space. Or you might look at the smoke movement patterns, seeing where the smoke is actually going in that space. However, in the case of time to clear measurements, in other words, how long does it take to clear that area, smoke management systems in atrium and malls are not designed to clear the space. So why test it like that? They're not designed for that. They maintain tenability, maintain clear layer heights above their heads, maintain temperature of the smoke, but not this clear, time to clear management skills. In other words, the test does not demonstrate any acceptance criteria are met. All it shows is, well, yeah, it clears it all in about 4 minutes, that's good. That doesn't mean you've met your acceptance criteria. The usual test involves the use of alcohol fires to produce sufficient heat to create a hot gas layer. So what they're trying to do is not create this invisible smoke, a hot gas layer. Now, they obviously can't test to extreme temperatures. They can't get it in there to 600 degrees to see if levels of structure are damaged, but it can at least test the system operates as it is expected to do. And they also use non-corrosive and non-toxic smoke to demonstrate the smooth movement as well. They can do that. And it's simply injected into the hot gas layer to see where it's moving. Rather than just throw loads of smoke bombs in there, they actually inject smoke into the hot gases to simulate what a fire would look like, and they can do it that way. However, if you're trying to observe smoke movement patterns to ensure the smoke is travelling in the way the system is designed, fine, but does the entire space need filling? Not necessarily. Now, when you're observing the smoke movement, you'll be more interested in the smoke movement at specific points, such as at your shop fronts or near doorways. So that's where you might want to consider injecting your smoke in, where you need it. And why can't you use, for example, lightweight paper or airspeed and directional measurements instead of total filling? You can put equipment there rather than smoke, paper. See which way the paper's blowing. Now, another reason why visible smoke tests are used is when the designer has a lack of confidence in the calculations or to confirm the appropriateness of assumptions made in the design. So that's another reason why they do that. And this seems reasonable, especially with doubts over some of the computational techniques, for example, safety modelling. You know, if they haven't put the right inputs in, it might look all right on the computer. Is that real life? And it may not be validated correctly. So there may be times when visible smoke tests are justified. If nothing else, just justify why you're doing it. Don't just do it because you think you've got to test it. Justify why you're doing it and think about what you're trying to achieve. However, you also have to be aware that the movement of the smoke will also be affected by air movements in the building at the time of the test. For example, is the air conditioning on? Is that going to affect it? Would it be air conditioning on normally? In other words, a successful test today might not be successful on another day with different air movements. You know, when the people are coming in and all the doors are opening and closing? Yeah, so in other words, you've got to try and simulate when the building's been occupied, really, because obviously they have different air movements in there.